Parth and Pratham show.
Hi, Ms. Byrne. Before we get to the meat of our interview, we want to ask you a few questions about the reopening of Dublin High School next year. A lot of our audience is teenagers, so we know their attention span is a little short. So without further ado, here are some rapid fire questions. Parth?
Yeah, so let me take it away. So the first question people want to know about is, I know you sent an email, but fall check-in is coming soon, right? And so do you just mind reiterating the details of what's happening and how it's going to work?
Sure. So next week, August 5th, 6th, and 7th, we're going to have fall check-in. The freshmen will be the first day, sophomore and juniors the second, seniors the third day. When you come on campus, you're going to get your ID card, your ID picture taken, you're going to get your schedule, and you're going to get your books. And so this will allow you to have your books and be ready to go. You also can get your yearbook pictures if you did not, or yearbooks if you did not pick them up before. And also bring in any extra books if you have them at home. So there you go.
Okay, perfect.
Just a quick fact check. I'm going to check if, I believe it was August 3, 4, 5. We'll confirm that. I'll take a look. Mental health is a big concern, and so is fair accessibility to resources. With that in mind, how is the district advising teachers to assign their coursework? Will it be the same as normal, or will the coursework be slightly reduced?
It will be slightly reduced. It'll be definitely not like last spring, but it's not going to be like a typical year. What we're asking teachers is to really look at their curriculum and see what's the must-learns, and then also think about how they are going to deliver their instruction, because everything has to be a bit different. And our teachers have been working hard on that, looking at what maybe wasn't taught last year that they need to reteach, or what they can pare down.
Okay, awesome. So the next thing we want to know about is what standard, because a lot of people want to know when will school reopen, and so what guideline or standard will have to be met in order for schools to reopen on like a full 5-day basis?
Yeah, we're governed by a number of different factors, right? So we have the state, we have the county, and then we have the school district. And my understanding is the guidelines right now for the state say 14 days of either static or decrease in cases within a county. So it might be a while.
All right, so I have a quick follow-up on that. So we started, I think the school board decided it was 6 weeks, right, of in-home learning. And so in that 6 weeks, can we still transition into it? Like, or do we have to wait for 6 weeks to be over until we wait for the 14 days and then we go to hybrid or in person?
Right. I think, because the goal is to get kids back in the classroom as soon as possible, as safely as possible. And so that's why I really appreciate that they're taking it in chunks. I think we will know before the 6 weeks are up whether it's looking good to go back or whether it's not. And then I think it's going to be easier for parents, teachers, and the community to take it in bundles.
Awesome.
Absolutely. So I tuned into the district board meeting last week, and they announced on the road to reopening that this minimum number of minutes a student needs to receive education is reduced from 360 to 240. So how will this impact the traditional minute classes we have, which are 50 minutes?
So we are going to be having a block schedule. Hopefully by the end of the week, everyone will see the block schedule. And so the classes will be 75 minutes, and you will have either 3 or 4 classes a day. There's also going to be time later in the day for intervention, checking in with your teachers, office hours, and things like that.
All right, yeah, that sounds good. I think last year when we tried out block schedule, a lot of students had a great time. So I'm happy that we're making the transition to block schedule.
Well, and had we not had COVID and shelter in place, that was the goal. We wanted to decide whether we wanted to do a 4-day-a-week block or 2-day-a-week block and implement it this fall. So in some ways, we're implementing it just not in the way we ever thought we would.
Okay, so for the next question, a lot of students, they're focused on homework, right? And so will there be like a reduction in the amount of homework that teachers can give, or is there like a standard set in terms of homework?
Well, we do have our school board policy, which says basically no more than an hour a night per class, and our teachers try to abide by that. I think many are cognizant of that this is a hard time, that students have more pressure outside of class than they might have before. So I know our teachers are really good about looking at it and trying to reduce it to the most meaningful homework and the one with the littlest amount of time. I don't want to say littlest amount of time, but gain more bang for their buck.
Yeah, so more efficient homework.
Yes, there you go.
So based on just like how important time is, I'm assuming there will be no Gale offered?
Actually, there will be a Gale, because how we set up the master schedule in terms of rooms and student time frame, we kept in Gale because we again want to make sure that we can seamlessly come back. And during the Gale time, we will have tutors available. Obviously, we're not going to be checking in on students, but we're going to have supports available.
Okay, so you did talk about tutors, right? And so we want to transition to a little talking about the hub, right? So the hub is where the tutors are and things like that. Is there any way the hub will transition to more of an online resource?
Yeah, they did that in the spring, but I don't know if it was very well advertised. So they will be opening chat rooms, probably with different topics. Like rather than a general math one, we might go by content area, algebra 2, things like that. And we're really looking into our times. We found in the spring that most kids wanted it after school hours. So we're looking at roughly 12 to 5 or 6 every day. And as things like that are finalized, we're going to get word out.
Yeah, that's a good idea, taking into what students need. Because especially, yeah, people tend to go a lot after school, right when they get their homework for the day.
Yes, right.
How will assessments be provided? Because it looks like we're doing letter grades early on.
We're definitely doing letter grades, and that's a big part of what the staff is working through. We want meaningful assessments. We want to be able to see what you've learned in order to help you progress. But we also know this culture right now, a lot of kids cheat. And so we're trying to have a balance of what type of assessment is going to give us a true understanding of what a student's doing, and not when, it's false. So we will have assessments because we're going to have letter grades, but we're going to have multiple different types of assessments, but we're still working through all of that.
Okay, so now we wanted to talk more about the teachers, right? And so teachers, even if they don't have COVID-19, sometimes get the flu or have sick days, right? And so how will teachers receive sick time? Because I think currently they're talking about giving them 10 days, but is there anything else that they're getting?
So every year teachers get 10 days. It's part of their contract, and teachers use that. So, and you can bank it, just so you know. So with the new system, we're using a learning management system that will upload like your lessons and things like that. So, because we don't think it's valuable to have subs for 75 minutes just looking at a class. So if a teacher is sick, you'll be notified through Canvas, and then you'll just continue to work on the work of that week.
Wait, just a quick follow-up. You talked about Canvas, so we're going to start shifting from Google Classroom to Canvas.
Yeah, and in some ways you might still be in Google. We're working that out, but Canvas is going to be the main platform. One of the big things we learned over last spring was that it was really hard for students and parents to go from multiple platforms. So we want one-stop shopping for families, students, teachers to be able to access curriculum.
Yeah, and I like Canvas because they have the grades and the assignments and everything there in just one nice little package.
Yeah, it's supposed to be great. I'm being trained on it next week, so I have a lot of answers on it, but everyone who I've talked to who uses it really likes it.
Mm-hmm.
As an executive of the school district, are you part of the DTA, the Dublin Teachers Association, or are you for the board? Which side do you fall on?
Right. Well, I hate to put it up like us versus them. So admin are not part of a union, and so we represent management. So actually I'm on the negotiating team, which is a great group of teachers and staff trying to work together to come to solutions. Obviously, people have slightly different lenses they're viewing things in, but what's been nice is we work collaboratively most of the time.
Okay, so the last question, it's about something that happened, I think, 1 or 2 days ago. the schedules came out on Infinite Campus for like a brief like 10-minute period, and a lot of students saw their schedules and they were really confused. I think I can say, especially for myself, a lot of things didn't seem right. I think one of the electives that I was guaranteed of getting, I didn't get, and then I didn't have a Gale period. So are those the permanent schedules, and is there like, are there changes going to be made, or is there, just speak a little on that, please?
Yeah. So yeah, that was an interesting blip in our system. Someone had turned it on, and it wasn't on very long, but hundreds of kids looked at it, which makes me think, what else should you be doing on your Sunday afternoon? They are not. So counselors always come back a week early. So counselors have been here since Monday, and part of what they do is go through schedules, because as I mentioned, we don't write out schedules. Our Infinite Campus programs them. It has a master schedule builder, but there's always mistakes. And so that's what teachers are going through, or the counselors. And then the process when you get your schedule will be much like every year. If you're misplaced in a class, if you don't have a class you need for graduation, you'll email your counselor. But if it's, I got this elective instead of this elective, those schedule changes won't be made.
Okay, so now that these important questions are done, we can take a deep breath, right? That was pretty rapid fire, right? Yeah. Okay, and now we can go more into like our interview format that we usually do. So,
Okay.
Absolutely. So a lot of people have gone through personal growth during COVID-19. Have you learned has COVID-19 taught you anything about yourself?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So in the beginning of COVID-19, I saw all these posts about, oh, I've learned a new language, I've rearranged my entire house, I've baked all these things, and I was even more busy than normal. You know, not only was we were trying to figure out the school, but I also have 2 young school age kids at home I was trying to help with. But I actually really resented everyone who were able to have the luxury of doing that. But one of the things I definitely have learned is, you know, just important to have some breathing time. You know, I like to run, but I haven't been running as regularly as I used to in the past, but I've been running more. And also just the value of walks. I started having a schedule where I would take each of my kids for a walk for 15 minutes during the day, just to check in and give us all a little difference from what we were doing. So that's been really helpful. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think the main key element of kind of going outside and exercising, stretching your legs, that's kind of important, because we talked to a psychologist recently, and she's like, take a fresh air, reset, find a schedule. So these things are really important. And yeah.
I always feel in times of stress, you have to go back to the basics. You know, are you eating correctly? Are you getting enough sleep? So I've really worked on my sleep. Typically, I don't sleep enough. So that has been a priority, because I know with all the stresses, I've started meditating. I need to be as centered and healthy as possible, not just for me, but for my family and for the Dublin community.
So tell us about yourself. Why did you choose to become a principal?
Oh, good question. I never thought I was going to be a principal. And actually, I never thought I was going to be a long-term educator. I was able to get my teaching credential by the time I graduated from college. And I thought, 4 years, I might as well start doing that while I try and figure out what I really want to do in life. And then a couple of years in, someone said, oh, you're a lifer. And even at that time, I said, no, I don't think so. And then all of a sudden you realize how much you like what you do. And I never thought I would leave the classroom, but I always told myself the classroom is somewhere where you never should be bored. You know, there's always excitement. And if I ever got too bored, that was going to be my sign that I needed to find something else. And about 12 years into my teaching career, I started getting restless. So I looked into becoming an administrator. And then this was my first admin job. I started 17 years ago now. And even with being a principal, I had no desire to be a principal. But I like being second in command. This is a good spot for me. I don't like being in front of crowds. But then when Ms. Shimizu was retiring, I realized that there were so many parts of Dublin specifically that I loved, that I just wanted to make sure that I had some control in keeping them in place and helping the community grow in the way that I felt, you know, it needed to, or it should. So yeah, I always say that I would never have been a principal if I wasn't in Dublin.
And so you talked like just recently about how there's things that you want to keep going, right? And we could call these school traditions, and Dublin High School does have a lot of them. You could talk about the carnival that we have and just many other school traditions. What is your favorite tradition that Dublin High has?
I mean, it has to be skit night. I love skit night. There's a couple things, like I love the talent show. I love Mr. Dublin, but skit night is not only so amazing how creative everyone is and how unified, but it always gives me like tears because it's just so well done. And it just, the way the classes come together, I think the community at Dublin is like no other, in the school spirit. And it's just great to watch.
Yeah, speaking of creativity, senior pranks. Maybe you've been here 17 years. What's your favorite one you've seen?
Okay, I have a couple. So one year, before our school was rebuilt, we used to have this kind of step down quad area outside the library. And one year, two of the seniors decided to flood that area. So we came to school, and I think they had fish too, but I'm not too sure. So that was a good one. Another time, and I was part of it, I let the student in, but one of our students brought hay and an actual goat into the place where myself and the other assistant principal was. And so he was one of her students. So when she walked in, she was so angry because there was a bunch of hay and a goat there. We have a video of that somewhere. So those probably are my favorite. But even some clever things, like a couple of years ago, someone dumped off a bunch of chickens on campus, and seeing our police officers running after trying to catch chickens. And for me, I like that because I hate the pranks that make our custodians do a lot of work. You know, a lot of times the water balloon fights, it's our custodians picking up after them. But this one was funny. It was clean. It wasn't a lot of work for other people, and it was hilarious.
Okay, so you talked about how even during COVID-19, your schedule was extremely hectic, right? And just the normal principal schedule on top, just thinking what's happening next year, what's about the future. And so just going back to when things were normal, what was your daily schedule like before, and how did it change due to COVID-19?
So one of the things I like about the job is it's always varied, but I usually get to school between 7 and 8, and my day is spent either in meetings or visiting classrooms. I evaluate all of our first and second year teachers, and then obviously outside during duty. And then after work would vary. Typically, if I didn't have a night event, I would leave between 4 and 5. If I did have a night event, which was probably average 3 nights a week, I'm out till 8 to 10, either at evening meeting with parents, or an athletic event, a band event, things like that. So supervision for a high school administrator is huge. So I would work probably 50 to 60 hour weeks. And the difference with COVID is, so a lot of those night events, all the night events and all the supervision pieces were gone. But I noticed my emails went from, typically I get about 200 to 300 emails a day, and it went to about 400 or 500. Now, 150 to 200, like 20% of those are just junk, but there was so many people needing to know what was going on. We were responding to that, trying to figure it out ourselves, trying to create a schedule, trying to keep community, looking after mental health. So there has been a lot. And it was nice not to commute or have night events, but I realized those night events are one of the reasons I love the job, because I love seeing all those things. So it's been interesting.
Pivoting a little bit to school affairs and the teachers, I would like to say that we have some of the best teachers on campus. They're here for a long time and do a great job. They're really committed to their students. So where do you find the teachers? Is there like an agency that you get to find them?
Yeah, you are right about Dublin teachers. They are so committed, so caring, and excellent. They know their stuff. We've been really lucky. So there's something called EdJoin, and when any school has jobs, they post it on EdJoin, and then people apply it, and it's kind of known through the education world. So what we do is we really look to screen applicants and look for their experience, look for their content area. You know, do they really understand biology? And then we narrow it down. We always have a face-to-face interview, and this spring it was a virtually face-to-face. And then typically what we would want to do in a normal year is see them in action, because anyone could fake an interview and look good on paper. But when you see how they interact with kids, when you see that they have a sense of humor, seem caring, seem organized, that's when you know you got a good one. So I think I'm really proud of the teachers we've hired for this fall. I think they're going to be great. And so it's going to be fun to see them in action, but I wish we had seen them before.
Awesome.
Yes, you've been here 17 years, as you mentioned. During that time, you've probably seen a lot of expansion in Dublin. So how do you keep yourself engaged with the community?
Yeah, and it's different now. Yeah, so when I came to Dublin, we had 1,100 students. So we're 3 times the size. This year we're going to be 3,300. And a lot of it is about relationships. You know, what's nice is because I've been here so long, there's so many families that I've seen older siblings come through. When I was an assistant principal, you have a lot more interaction with students. So I was able to create bonds more quickly. And so now I have to be more conscious, like visiting classrooms, touching base with people, going to clubs and things like that. It has to be more deliberate. It's not as organic. But at this point, I have a lot of friends in the community as far as parents, and it's definitely great to get all sorts of different perspectives.
And so on top of that, our community has grown a lot in terms of diversity. And recently there's been events relating to Black Lives Matter. And so we just want to get your take, right? What will the school do in the future, or it has been doing in the past, to promote equality and diversity for all students?
So I think we've always had an open mind, but I think around the events that led to diversity, we started realizing that unless we start talking about these things more intentionally, people make assumptions. People make the assumptions like, oh, everyone gets along. There is no racism or sexism or what have you. And when you listen to people's stories, you know that's not the case. And in the events of the spring with the murder of George Floyd and the others, it really resonated that we need to do more. And so a lot of the staff also feel the same way. And so many of us have been reading more, having more conversations. One of the things we'll be doing in the fall is really looking at some nitty-gritty numbers, like, is our curriculum inclusive? Do we have works that we need to, or events we need to talk more about, and things like that. And I know our teachers have already started doing a lot of that work. And also to see about access. You know, do all students truly have the same access at Dublin High School? And they don't. And so it's on us to start providing more and more supports to make every kid successful in every class.
And I can speak for myself. I think teachers like Miss Briggs, who teaches AP Lang, as well as Miss Hake, who I had for APUSH, have kind of expanded my knowledge, because the things they teach are not like just, oh, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks. They go deep into people like Malcolm X and more diverse Black figures. And so I think just that expansion of ideas is really important, and the teachers on our campus are doing a lot. So
they
just
sure are.
That would be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And they're hungry to do more. You know, they and they know more than I do. So, you know, it's going to be a great partnership.
Absolutely. For the last 3 years, we've had a lot of shuffling school superintendents going in and out. So how have you had to pick up the slack for their work? Have you?
Oh, that's a very good question. My first year as principal, you know, I moved from assistant principal to principal, and I underestimated how different chair one is from chair two. And that was right when we were transitioning out of Dr. Hankey, who had been here for 10 years. So I think the first year was really hard. I was looking for guidance, especially because I didn't know a lot of times what I was doing. And what I realized at that point, just given what was going on, really honing in on Dublin High School and our staff and taking cues from them, and really helped. And so I felt like a lot of that, we got help from the district office, but we kind of set our own tone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. And so just, you talked about it a little bit, but specifically, what are the differences between your job as a principal and then the superintendent's job?
Oh, good golly. So they are responsible for being the umbrella. You know, they are setting, along with the board, the whole direction and vision for the school. And that's what I really appreciate, because I might have ideas of what I think we should do, but they have ideas of what all 11, 12 schools that we have should be doing. They do things much more globally. They're more involved. They have to be involved in not only politics with the city, with growth, with facilities, looking at the K-12 education to make sure that's in alignment, looking at grading, budget. It's a huge job that I wouldn't want.
Yes. Okay. So let's talk about teenager trends. As a principal, you have to deal with them a lot. Have you picked up on any trends?
Kind of. I'm not very completely tech savvy, but definitely TikTok and Snapchat and things like that. I've definitely picked up. I heard recently about doom scroll, which apparently is a thing, but I feel I'm pretty out of touch too, to be honest.
So you've been in the school for 17 years, right? And so you've made many big changes that a lot of people appreciate, specifically like the wellness center. Are there any other big changes you want to make to the school? And if not, do you want to highlight some of the changes you've made and the impact that they've had on our community?
Yeah, so I'll start with the past and then move towards the future. Yeah, I was really lucky that when I was an assistant administrator, they asked me to be involved in the Biomed Academy. So I worked very closely with Ms. Sundstrom and Ms. Keynes on setting that up and helping that grow, which was super exciting. And then also developing the Gale period and the hub supports and freshman mentoring program, a group of probably 8 teachers, and I was one of them. We went to Illinois about 10 years ago and saw at Adlai Stevenson High School a lot of what they had. And we just came back jazzed, especially different teacher, Ms. Angel Diaz, Ms. Sundstrom, Ms. Velez. And so together we created, along with the superintendent at the time, the Gale period. And in the beginning, people did not want the Gale period, and especially the kids who were a little more academically advanced, because they felt like, oh my gosh, why are you going to give us time during the day? We don't want it. And so what's been great to see is how many students utilize it, how much they like it for stress reduction. And it's been a great thing. So I'm really proud of our work with that. Yeah, also the Wellness Center, Ms. Taylor has really taken the ball and run with that along with Mrs. De Silva and the counselors. And that's been super exciting. As far as next steps, that's a good question. Part of it is making sure that we have, common messaging and common practices. And as we grow, that's sometimes difficult. I do feel that moving forward with really re-examining our practices concerning equity is going to be huge. Keeping our school spirit as we have a second high school or a third high school, if I forgot Valley, is going to be critical too. Also, other things to look at, are graduation requirements the right graduation requirements now? They definitely were when we created them, but I think we're a different school right now, so I would like to see some changes there, including maybe rather, as well as a biliteracy award, some award for service and for community action. So it's never ending, and that's what's exciting about education.
Absolutely. And that trip that you took to Adlai Stevenson High School, yeah, it has like a lot of changes that we do right now. Gale, FMP came from that. And as an FMP mentor, I can see how it really helps freshmen acclimate to the school. So speaking of school, if students want to contact you about the uncertainty next year, what should they do? Is your email the best way to contact?
Yeah, I love getting student emails. I think you noticed in the spring, I was sending out a lot of emails, and at everyone I always put my address because I want to hear back from you. I used to do a lot of surveys, and although I still do some, I love that too because I read every single answer, and people don't know that. Someone always writes, I know you're not reading this, but it's very helpful to understand where kids are coming from, and staff too, because I send out a lot of staff survey. But I would say email is the best. Little patience, especially right now, because I'm getting a lot of them. But always feel free to email me again. Sometimes something is bottom of I keep unread messages that I need to respond to unread. But if they're way down there, always feel free to email me again if I didn't respond.
Yeah, so thank you for being on our show. We had one last request. We wanted to all do it together. We wanted to, school spirit is important. So we wanted to say stay fly Dublin High together, just to
Sounds
get
good.
people. So, all right, so I'll do the counter, right? Three, two, one.
Stay fly,
Stay
Dublin
fly,
High.
Dublin High.
Awesome. All right, so thank you so much for being on our show. We had a
Thank
great
you guys. It was really fun. Appreciate it.